Hi, this is Josh with the Fort Worth Trailer for another video where we just make stuff. And today we are going to continue working on our Nerf Strong Arm cosplay, steampunk mod, whatever you want to call it. And we are going to start applying the color to this, which is the fun part, really. And it might take a couple of different videos. Today I want to focus on, in this video, putting the metal color down, the silver color. And then if we have time, we can do some of the other stuff, but really that needs to dry before we put the weathering on to do it right. So that's what we're going to do today. Okay, so to get started, I don't know if you can see my layout here. It's not the most organized thing in the world, but it's what I use. And I'm going to show you real quick. You've already seen the spray paint. All right, the other basic ingredients. Today we're going to use this. This is called Rub and Buff. And I don't know if you can see it. That's the name brand. There are other brands. It's a metalizer. And basically what it is it says right here, wax metallic finish. So this is a wax. It's carnauba wax, like what you put on your car to wax it, with metal, actual metal flakes in it. And what happens is you put it on, the wax dries and hardens and actually can be polished, and then it makes it look like real metal. It's the best thing in the world to make something that isn't metal look like metal. So I have a couple of different colors, but today we're going to mainly be using the silver. Now that does have a smell to it, so if you want to use a respirator, you can, or something for the smell, if it bothers you. We also have just model paint, which is it's an oil-based enamel, I guess is what you call it. And I have a couple colors. Mainly I have silver, I have a green, which is gold and green, kind of a copper color, and then more of a bronze color, and I have black. These I use kind of like I use the metalizer for metallic colors. When it comes to actual colors, one of the things that sticks the best on here and is the easiest to work with are acrylics. And these are good acrylics. I get them at the art store. They are not tempera paints, but they are good. They're water-based acrylics, and they are not that cheap, but they last forever. So, I mean, you buy one of these for $5, $6, $7, depending on your art store price. And this lasts for a long time. I get about, depending on the size of the gun, I get about 2 guns per can of primer, per can of color base coat. So every 2 guns, I'm having to buy a new can, two new cans of spray paint. And for the same price, I buy one of these, and man, this might last me years. I don't know how many, years. So I've got a variety of color of those. I've got 1 bucket full of an oil-based brush cleaner for the oil paints and the waxes, and then I've got another bucket with water. And it's not always fresh. When it gets low, I refill it, but it doesn't need to necessarily be. We're not painting bright colors on a picture. We're making stuff look dirty, so if there's a little dirt in the water, that's fine. So, first off is the gun itself. Now that it's black, you can actually start to see all of the fine detail that the artist, that the toy maker actually put into this. It's really quite incredible. And the first time you do this, I don't personally go into it with a plan. Some people do. They plan it all out. They might even do a sketch. I don't, because it's so hard to tell on a new gun what it's going to look like once it's all black like this, that I find it easier to do my plan after I've done this. It's all one color. I can see that there's a line here, that this part right here is a separate piece than the back, and that this part right here is a separate piece from this, which would be like the metal, the chamber for the bullets, or in this case, you know, the bullets are up here, but you know, that's the mechanism. That's the cocking mechanism. These are weird guns. It's a cross between a 9mm where you cock it, you know, a semi-auto, and a revolver. But whatever, that's what they do. And then there's these little bolts. Here's the handle, which is a separate piece, and it's got this thing goes all the way around, a line all the way around. So the handle can be a separate piece. Now, I like making it look rubber, like a modern piece, but what we're going to do in this case is we're actually going to make it look like it's a wooden handle, and it's nice because it's already got the detail. There are nice little bolts, and up here, and the it's writing on the gun, but it's actually a plaque. It's a placard, that's riveted to the gun, and that looks really good once we apply some of this color to it. So once again, it's important to wear gloves. At this stage, you do not want fingerprints on this. That will mess you up. So we're gonna wear gloves when we do this. Whatever kind of gloves you like, the ones that are most comfortable and give you the most dexterity is what we'll do. So first off, we're gonna start. Actually, we're gonna start with the silver paint. Now, I don't like this as a finish, but for going around fine edges like this and on these little bolts that are here, it's easier than the wax because the wax we're rubbing on with a rag. So this is more fine. So what I do with this is I just go around the edges that I want hard edges for, and then I come back with the rubbing buff. So this settles, so make sure you shake it up pretty well. And I don't use this on any other part, because most of the other pieces, these pieces that need the rubbing buff as well, they're just solid pieces, and I just put the rubbing buff all over it. So, but this, because I don't want it to bleed over necessarily, I want to be really precise. This stuff goes a long way, so I got a really fine brush, and I just put it on the edge, and I just paint to the edge. And yes, you get the joy of watching me paint. And wow, this is really exciting. So it also takes a lot of concentration. So if I don't talk as much, I'm sorry. Let's see. Be real careful that you only get it on the one side. I try not even to get it even down into the groove, so that the groove looks black. Now, if you get a little bit down into the groove, that's fine, because we can go back with black and fill it in later. One of the important things to remember is that one of the things that makes this look great is that the black undercoat is there. So what happens is in these areas down here that are deep, and in these crevices, the black shows through. Now, what that looks like to the human eye is that it's silver with black gunk in the grooves, not that the black's underneath. So we have to be real careful. I'm not going to paint this whole thing with this silver, because that would eliminate that underneath black that I want sometimes to show through. So really, I'm only using this to form a hard edge that would be hard to do cleanly with wax and a rag. So I will kind of pull it out like that, but I'm not going to do it any more than that. I'm not going to fill in the gaps. I'm not going to put any down in there. I am going to get the top of this bolt. Okay, so now we're starting. Yeah, that might be actually too much. All right, now this is interesting. There's no real line here, so you kind of decide on your own. That there's no detail on the inside of the cylinder here, but I try to make it line up with down here just so that you can see it. And this, you don't have to be as careful. I just fill it in with silver, so I don't have to get my rag in there. You only see this part when the chamber's open, when you're loading new bullets into it. So it's just looking at it, you don't see it. And you can't get a rag into these crevices sometimes. It's up to you whether or not you leave some of the mechanical parts black or silver. I don't think it really makes a difference. Let's see. I will say that this model paint also, it's oil-based, so it does have fumes. I don't notice it in a shop like this, but if you were doing this in your house, you definitely would notice it. So that's something to be aware of. And this is where I find the most enjoyment. I'm going to probably talk about this a lot, but there's a phenomenon known as ASMR. And don't ask me what that stands for. I've known before, but I don't know anymore. So I'm going to move the other side. But it's that some people, when they hear whispering voices or they hear a certain type of sound, repetitive sound, it's an auditory neurological phenomenon, and it causes tingles. I don't know, it's described as like tingles going down your back into your head. It's very relaxing for those who experience it. I guess not everybody does, but they're finding that a lot of people do. They just thought that they were weird because they felt this weird thing, like you'd get a teacher in school or something, and just the way the teacher spoke would just give you those like chills down your back. Well, they found that that's a real neurological condition, and it's repeatable. So there are now tons and tons of videos online where you can basically, you need to have headphones. It doesn't really work without headphones, but you listen to people whispering, you listen to people crumpling up paper, scratching stuff, all sorts of stuff. Anyway, and basically, if you need to relax and you're one of these people that feels this, go listen to one of these videos. Well, they have a whole series of them called accidental ASMR. And what they are, they're videos of people making stuff, usually, or painters that paint. One great one is this guy. He carves words into stone. And he just does his work, and he kind of chats, and kind of like what I'm doing. And people love it because it triggers whatever this ASMR stuff. Just hearing the sounds and hearing this guy's gentle voice drone on. So what some people find boring, watching me paint, may show up on somebody else's radar as accidental ASMR trigger. So, there's that. So I did that. Be careful not to touch it because this does take a little bit to dry. So I did around here, and now I'm going to go back and I'm going to get these bolts. And it's up to you how far down you want to paint them. The further down you paint them, you might look a little bit more realistic, but then you risk hitting the body. I try not to get the middle. I try just to get the top because I do want a little black to show through. That's the danger of using this paint, is that, man, it'll fill up everything, as opposed to the wax, which you'll see just kind of hits the surface and leaves the recessed areas untouched, which looks real good. This just, it gets down in it. But if you go around with this, you'll notice, and focus on the outside where the bolt meets the body, where we want kind of a hard edge. I'm not doing a very good job on this one. And not so much the top, which is accessible. It'll look better. And we'll go back and hit it with the rub and buff, and you'll see that it'll just give it a little bit of shine on the top. And it'll look like that's a silver bolt that's got grime in it, but also, because the bolt sticks out, has worn down to where it's shiny right on the surface. So, and it's up to you how many of these little details you want to paint. I do those two usually. I don't. There's another little divot here, and I don't usually paint that one. So that's everything on this side. Flip it over. Like I said, be very careful. Now I've got wet stuff everywhere on the other side, and I don't want to touch it. So you gotta handle the gun the right way so that you're not touching your wet work. Okay, so now this is oil paint, and it does take a little while to dry. So when I'm done, I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to start putting the rub and buff on the various parts that we removed in the first episode. And although it takes a little while to dry, it's not like it takes hours or anything, especially this much of it. So I should be able to come back and still do that. So, and if it smudges a little bit into what I'm doing later, that's fine. At least with this. So this brush is different than the rest. This is a very fine point brush, and the bristles go to a point, and that's important. I have really tiny brushes. These are all flat or round. And for this kind of fine work, find yourself what's comfortable to you, but this is it's an artificial I don't even know what you call it. Bristles. Artificial bristles, where I think these are natural. But that doesn't matter so much on this, other than it goes to a point, and that's what you want. You will have a hard time if you don't do that. So, I'm also going to do this down here. I always forget this. And I'm just going to go, there's this little metal ring on the bottom, and I'm only going to get the silver right up next to it where it transitions to the gun. And you know what? I thought there was something different. This is actually a separate piece that comes off. For some reason, when we took this apart in the first episode, it stuck and it didn't come apart, and I didn't notice it. So I've been painting it as part of the gun. It's a lot easier if it's not on there, but that's okay. We'll make up for it. Nobody will know the difference. So I'm not, as you can see, I'm not going to paint the whole thing silver. There is some detail in here that I do not want the silver paint to get down inside to the details. That would ruin the effect. I just want to use, because it's more controllable, use the brush to help define the transition between where the silver starts and then the rest goes into the gun. So, all right, might as well do it. So that's pretty much it for that. That's the silver paint. Now I'm gonna set, that should be dry. Let me see. Yeah, I can set it like that. Or I could go hang it back up again if you didn't have a place to set it down. All right, this is important to clean your brushes. Don't set this aside, even if you think, oh, I'm going to use it again in 20 minutes. In that 20 minutes, you've ruined your brush. So I'm going to get a rag. Okay. I always use a couple of rags. So bear with me. One to clean the brushes. Sometimes one to clean the oil and one to clean the water, but I don't use the oil that much, so I don't think it'll make much of a difference. So I use one to put the metalizer on, the rub and buff, and one when I'm using the acrylic. And of course, after the day, if I don't finish, then I'll throw those away and I'll get new ones. But I always have 3 separate ones. So I might not even use that brush very much the rest of the time. So while the acrylic is, not the acrylic, the model paint is drying, I'm going to start using this. So you can see my little palette that I've made on the side of this desk. Just squeeze out a little bit of this. You're going to take a rag. Now these are good. You can use paper towels. You can use cloth rags. I think the pros tend to use cloth rags. I use a shop rag. It's kind of it's a cross between a cloth rag and a paper towel. They don't last as long as the cloth rags. They'll rub through real quick, but they don't have the lint like a paper towel. So what I do is I get a little bit on the brush and then I rub it off. I rub it onto my palette. In this case, this table, because I want it almost like a dry brush. And you see, as I put it on, I don't push really hard. I'm not coating it. In this case, I'm not. And even if I do, I want to put it down in layers. So I'm going to first do it real light. In this case, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is overtly silver. So what am I doing? I am trying to make this look like it was silver, bright silver originally from the factory, but that there's a lot of junk and gunk that's gotten into it. And so it's dulled it down a lot. And as you can see, that goes on real nice. As long as you don't have too much, and I have to constantly move this, as long as you don't have too much on, and you do a real light touch, you can see, wow, it looks really good. It looks metal by itself. Another one of those little rings, right? Now, since I'm already putting silver on both sides, it doesn't matter so much. So, I'm going to keep doing this for a little while and decide what level, how solid I want it. This is where I sanded off the Nerf, and so the texture is a little funny, but that's okay. In this case, there's a second side, and although I'm not going to screw them together, they do go together. We want to make sure the color matches. So, might as well do them together. It's a good idea. Should have done that from the beginning. But this way, one side won't look that different from the other. It's supposed to look like one piece. Oh, wow. I apologize. There's a little of a technical difficulty there, and the end of this episode didn't get recorded. So I'm coming back now after the fact to record the end of this video. So that's all we're going to get to today. We ran out of time. I was hoping to go a little bit farther, but we didn't. In the next episode, we will continue putting the metalizer on the other parts. We will put metalizer on the gun itself and start weathering some of the metal parts on the gun. That's as far as we'll get in the next episode. So thank you very much for watching. Thanks for listening to my stories. Please subscribe to our channel and keep coming back to look for more content as we continue to add. And please go to Etsy, my Etsy shop, with the links below, where you can find this and other guns that I've painted as well to buy for yourself. And until next time, bye.